Love the idea of learning a new language but have no idea how to get started? My name is Jamie, I'm a language coach. Let's talk about how to get started learning a new language. The very first step to how to get started learning a new language is to pick the language. Now, if you're stuck here, I have an entire other video that can help you with this, so I would highly recommend you start with that video. But my big tip for this is to not invalidate your choice. There doesn't have to be any, financial reasoning. There doesn't have to be a logistical reason to learn a language. Any language that you decide that you want to learn for whatever reason is valid. I give you full permission to learn a language just because you want to, because it makes you happy, because you're interested in it. Even for me, I've been learning languages for over 10 years now, and I still can't really pinpoint any financial reasoning or tangible reasoning that I can just explain other than I'm really interested in it. So pick your language and own it. The next step for how to get started learning a new language is to think about what you want to accomplish with the language. How do you want to use it? Now, this is really, really important, and this is where most language learners go wrong, which is why I start right here with my language coaching course, The Method, because the way in which you want to use the language should be dictating what you're doing to learn the language. So, for example, if you just want to have conversations, then it's ideal to focus on building up your ability to have conversations. However, if conversations really aren't that important to you and you'd rather read in the language, you're a really big reader and you want to expand your cultural awareness in a specific language, then spending all of your time and energy having those conversations isn't going to be nearly as beneficial to your language learning as something that will help you build up your ability to read the language. As an example, I've had clients who have wanted to learn languages to deal with people at work, whether it's coworkers or clients, and they've gone off to spend their time with language exchange apps like HelloTalk or Tandem, or even private lessons with a one-on-one tutor on italki. But for other language learners who've really been more focused on understanding movies and being able to enjoy YouTube videos and things like that in their target language, it's made more sense to them to go do something like LingoPie or even Language Reactor, where you can use videos right here on YouTube to work on your target language. This is why I highly recommend starting out here and focusing on what it is that you want to accomplish. Because if you're really focused on having those conversations, then going through the Duolingo tree isn't going to be nearly as effective or enjoyable as any number of other strategies that will help you to build your conversational skills. Once you understand what it is that you want to accomplish, that should totally 100% dictate everything else that you're doing in your language learning, including the rest of these steps. Once you know what it is that you want to do with the language, the next step is to pick your strategies, your tools, your resources, basically understand what it is that you want to do to learn the language. Now, if you get to this point, then you're already leaps and bounds ahead of most other language learners. Because while most language learners will decide to learn a language like German or Italian and Russian and then jump into Duolingo or a very similar and cheap resource, just to be disappointed and frustrated as time goes on when they realize they spend all their time and are still nowhere closer to their goals. With the information in this video, you're going to be much more intentional about how you're spending your time. You'll be able to make much more educated decisions about what resources you're using, what approaches you're using to learn the language. Now, there are tons of strategies out there, and I have tons of videos on this channel to help you with that. But the first question that I recommend you asking yourself is what kind of learning you're looking for. Do you want to go more immersion based, which is listening to native media, talking to people, and doing more real life language learning? Or do you want to focus on more curated resources where you might have a more structured approach and you might have somebody telling you more what to study? So for example, if you really want to understand native media, this could be the difference between jumping into YouTube videos and figuring it out yourself as you go, or going to a more structured app like Fluent, where they have a bunch of videos that you can use from beginner to advanced, and they have a bunch of study tools. Or do you want to do a mix of the two? As long as the strategies and the resources that you're using directly relate to the goal that you've already picked out, it's pretty hard to go wrong. Plus, not only are there tons and tons of language learning resources, but there's more every single day. Being crystal clear on your goal can really help you stay focused on finding resources that will benefit you. Do you want to use a language app that's really fun, really simple, lots of bright colors, fun sounds to keep you thoroughly engaged? Or are you much more happy with some simple, maybe a little bit dry content? like finding news articles in your target language and using those to familiarize yourself with vocabulary and grammar in the context of things that are interesting to you. Where this part is concerned, there are no options as long as you are staying focused on the goal that you outlined earlier in this video. Once you've decided on your language learning goal and then which resources and strategies you're going to use to accomplish the goal, the next step is to think about when and how you're going to study. This means what time of day you're going to study. This means how often you're going to study. Is it every single day, every other day, multiple times every other day, or once every day and then you're done? Again, there are really no wrong answers here as long as you're staying consistent. And in my personal opinion, consistency really just means that you're coming back to it fairly often, which I know is a really vague definition, but in the world of language learning, it's hard to find specificity. So right now, it's time to take an honest look at your life and see where you can fit language learning in. And of course, this refers to not only what your schedule looks like and what hours of the day you're available, but what time of day you're most awake and most fresh. I've made the mistake of committing to language learning every single night because in the evening I would definitely have no other responsibilities, only to realize that I don't really like to do anything at night because I would rather relax. So it's really important to consider how you personally enjoy spending your day, what your energy levels are throughout the day. For example, are you generally awake at 5 a.m. or willing to be awake at 5 a.m. and so you're able to have language exchanges with somebody who lives in your target country? This can be a really difficult thing, especially with time zone changes. Or would you prefer something later in the afternoon or even at night? And would you prefer to learn more independently, so not necessarily with a language exchange, but maybe with an app that's more beneficial to getting you to produce the language more often? Or does this change from day to day? Are you sometimes awake and energized at 5 in the morning and then more calm and relaxed in the evening, just for it to completely switch around the next day and be really tired and groggy in the morning and have more energy at night? Do you want to be flexible with those expectations, or do you want to be really strict? Do you know that if you do not do any language learning first thing in the morning, it's not going to happen for the rest of the day? As you can tell, there are so many options to consider. None of them are right or wrong. It's really a matter of what your life looks like and what you want your life to look like. And then, of course, finding your own version, your own definition of consistency. Does consistency mean every single day, or does it mean a couple of times a week depending on your energy level? Does it mean having long-term focused study sessions where you're sitting down for 2 hours every other day? Or does it mean finding 10 to 15 minutes here and there throughout your day and having multiple study sessions every day? Or is it both? Does it change every day? Does it change every week, every month? Do you have busier seasons at work and so you shouldn't really be focusing on language learning and instead focus more on maintaining? There's a lot of questions to ask yourself here. So again, feel free to just sit and process this information before you make a decision. The next thing to consider, and also something that most language learners don't do, is tracking. How will you keep track of how your language learning is going? How will you keep track of making sure that you are getting closer to your goal? How do you make sure that the routine or the schedule that you set out for is actually beneficial to your life and your language learning, or if it's causing you more stress than good? What will progress look like? So many language learners struggle with not being able to see this progress in their language learning because they haven't specified what exactly that progress will look like. And when you know what you're tracking, how are you going to track it? Do you like keeping a bullet journal and you want to have a bullet journal just for your language learning where you keep track of your resources, your mood, your schedule, any number of things that may be important to you personally? Or are you more of a digital person and you want to keep track of audio clips of you speaking if you really want to work on your conversational skills? Do you want to keep track of the vocabulary you're learning, the grammar that you're learning, your comfort level, your confidence level? Do you want to keep track of shows that you're watching or whether or not you're using subtitles? Do you want to keep a general idea of how much you can understand and how much you can't understand? Maybe how difficult it is for you to understand something or how much you have to think before you explain something in the language? Again, there are no right or wrong things to track. It's a matter of what is meaningful to you. Because what is meaningful to me and what is important to track to me is not necessarily the case for you. Then after it's been a while and you've been doing the resources and tracking all of the things, the next step is to analyze the data. After it's been a while with this new strategy that you developed on your own and you've tracked the results of that strategy, What are you going to do with that information? What do you want to do with that information? What kind of information are you looking for? Do you find it important to know how quickly you're going through language learning resources? Do you want to see which resources and which strategies make you feel the best about yourself? Do you want to see what time of day works better for you? Do you want to adjust your language learning resources over time? And again, say it with me, there are no right or wrong answers. It's a matter of what is meaningful and important to you as a language learner. What's important is that you are tracking what you're doing day to day, and then every once in a while, totally up to you when that means, you're looking at your tracking and you're seeing if what it is that you're doing is benefiting you in the long run. Are you getting closer to your goals? Are you staying consistent? Are you enjoying what you're doing? And when things don't go well, which they won't sometimes, what are you going to do about it? How are you going to shift? What changes do you think you can make to make your language learning more productive and more enjoyable? And if you haven't gotten as far along as you hoped you would have, what are you going to do with that information? Are you going to let that slow you down, or are you going to use that information to make your language learning better? Because sometimes failure is inevitable. And the best thing you can do is learn from your mistakes. Of course, learning from your mistakes and not feeling guilty about it is a skill in and of itself. If you want to see an example of this, I highly recommend you watch this video next. In this video, I share with you what my goals were for the year 2022 and how I failed them miserably, why I failed them, and what I decided to do instead. I will see you in that video.